Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. Today, I have an amazing guest in Christian Anderson, and once again, excited to bring you guys another episode. But before we do more of these questions and dive into more about Christian, we got to first know his story and where he came from. So, Christian, why don't you give us a little bit of background of who you are and your story?
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on the show. First of all, it's cool to be here with you. My background is I was an actor in Los Angeles for 10 years, working on sitcoms and episodics and commercials. Had a great time doing that, but that led into a speaking career when then I was being hired by companies to come out and be their lead presenter or speaker or keynote on various topics. And then it was a growing calling inside of me that always to become a priest. And so that was like an onion being slowly peeled, an Episcopal priest. That led me out to seminary, which then led me to a church out here in Florida, Southeast Florida, where I am the vicar of a place called St. Mary's Episcopal Church. And so I now try to use all the different skill sets I have. And so the priesthood has engaged this understanding of mindfulness. And so I get very excited about being more in secular spaces and corporate spaces and seeing how can I use all of this breadth of work to help others find their mission, be very clear in their mission, and then also to have a clear vision that helps them overcome a lot of the struggles that you see sometimes in the workplace, and then avoid burnout, avoid a lack of retention in employees. And so I do think a lot of the stuff that I've learned through seminary and being a priest, there's so many universal concepts there that I feel confident going into any kind of landscape and be able to make it friendly for everyone in order for them to really achieve their big goals.
Yeah, super cool story. So I guess one of my first questions that draws to my mind is like, where did this pivot come from? Like you went from Hollywood acting to, like most people think when you think of Hollywood, they hate God. They don't care about being a Christian. They don't live the Christian morals. So like, draw me more into this. Like, where did this pivot come from?
Yeah, I was always there. I grew up in Chicago. I always loved the church. I think I was lucky or just I'm just very grateful that I went to a very healthy church as a kid. So I had these good memories. There was obviously a calling there. It was in the back of my head of me, what would it be like to be a priest? And I go talk to priests about it, and they would say, "No, you really love what you do, so just keep on doing that." And then finally, as you get older, you start to think about, what's the dent and impact I want to make on this world. And as an actor, I loved what I was doing, but you don't get to do it every day unless you're, big A-list actor. There's these gaps that happen, and as you get older, as you know, you just want to be pouring yourself into something every single day and making a mark for the betterment of the world. And so then I just dabbled. It was a slow dabble. I was able to go through all the hoops you got to jump through in the church to be able to even get to the place of seminary. You have to jump through a lot of burning hoops, like 7 years of it. And then finally went to seminary, tried it on, loved it. I thought I'd definitely go back to LA and be maybe a part-time priest and a full-time actor. Ended up in Florida of all places, and now a full-time priest. And then now I think my excitement, and what I loved about, let me put it this way, what I loved about Los Angeles was that people are they're spiritually hungry. They might not know about organized religion, or they do, and they might be a little worried about that, but everyone's spiritually hungry, and they're creatives, and they want to know more about the divine. And so if you can come into their life and create an opportunity for them to explore that in a way that really speaks their language, some powerful things can happen there. So I do miss that. And so I think that this work that I do now about working in secular spaces and speaking in secular spaces is sort of the best of both worlds. That I get to be in a non-church world sometimes and just sort of be that ambassador, whether I'm using universal principles or speaking directly about God.
Yeah, no, I find that super fascinating. What you said right there about being spiritual hungry. I think a lot of people to maybe get like you said, the calling from God to wake up and start to pay more attention about how they live on a daily basis. And that's something that you talk about a lot as well. And you talk about mindfulness. You talk about resiliency. I know you've claimed to be a great expert on perseverance as well. So I want to hear you talk some more about some of those topics. So if there's a favorite one that stood out right there, I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit deeper on one of those.
Yeah, the perseverance and resiliency comes just from a childhood that, like many of us, we had a complicated childhood and came from a broken family. And there was alcoholism in the family. There was eating disorders in the family. Parents got remarried, more kids showing up on the scene. And as a 13, 12-year-old boy, that kind of breaks your heart that now mom and dad are not together. And then now there's a whole other family that's involved where you're not getting the attention that you thought you would be able to get. And so you learn, and I learned a lot about perseverance through that because I saw my other family members persevere through it, A, B, because they're kind of a fight-on type family. And then I learned that I had to just face my demons and I just couldn't complain about it and become a victim, that you have to say, okay, how's this become my greatest gift? And so then as I got older and I learned to face the music more and I realized it made me stronger and more empathetic, how does that help then with emotional intelligence? Just when you start to, whether the workplace is on a studio set or whether the workplace is here in the church or just in the corporate world, is that how do you have this emotional challenge, emotional intelligence and develop it so you can persevere throughout all the challenges that come and see challenges in the workplace or in your own life as great opportunities to grow deeper as a human being, to grow deeper in community, and then from a spiritual place, absolutely to grow more deeply with God.
Yeah, that brings me to you just kind of hit me on a great point right there. How do we get closer to God? Because we are going to have moments as Christians. Obviously, everyone's a sinner in this world, and we're well aware of that. We probably commit sins without even realizing we commit sins. But how can we get closer to God? Besides, obviously, we want to open up the Bible. Obviously, we want to live out the commandments as best as possible, but because there's so many distractions in this world, like what else is there, Christian, that we can do?
Well, at the time we're recording this, it is in the Episcopal Church and the Catholic Church and probably Lutheran Church. It's a time of Lent, which is really a time of fasting and repentance. Repentance comes out as a pretty strong word for someone who might not be going to church. So repentance just means to turn from old behaviors into new ones. And so the church says, take 40 days and just focus on that. Focus on turning. Look at your life and thinking like, what behaviors and actions am I doing right now, which are not really producing more life, and that could be, that's why people give up things like chocolate or booze or whatever, because chocolate is not innately bad. Alcohol is not innately bad, but if it's starting to really take away from you to be more life-giving to your family, to your friends, to work, that maybe you're using it just to take the edge off, well then that's now this material thing you're depending upon. So what would it look like to spiritually explore that moment of like, how do I find relaxation and peace? So instead of having 1, 2, or 3 or 4 or more beers when I get home, what would it look like to focus on breathing? What would it like to focus on just finding a healthier action, like spending real quality time with your children or friends? What would it look like to you find a mantra or a meditation? And you see, you might roll your eyes and be like, oh God, yeah, whatever. But see, Lent says, just try it out for 40 days. And if it stinks, forget it. Don't ever do it again. But I think what the church is proposing is that you'll find a new depth in your own heart. And mindfulness gets into this too. So mindfulness gives you more of the universal way to talk about this without going into the whole religious aspect. But when I go into corporate spaces and I just say, the first thing we're going to do, friends, is I'm going to lead you on a meditation for 3 minutes. That's it. We're going to get quiet. We're going to put our phones down. And I'm going to have you guys focusing on your breath. And I'm going to lead you through a brief visualization. And just choose in with me for 3 minutes. And they do it. They put the phones down. They focus. I give them permission to leave everything else behind at the door. They'll all be waiting for you. And when we come out of those 3 minutes, you could just tell the room is just sunk in. Like people are just locked in. And I say, see, you can do that any moment during the day. And it's going to take the temperature down. That when you have to go into a tough negotiation meeting or a tough discussion or just a whole thing of work, you will be steady Eddie. You're going to have a much more of a place of peace to be at. And so for us as people of faith, we need to do the same thing in our own prayer life. And so to find 3 minutes where you just breathe in and breathe out and just say a mantra of like, Jesus, I want to know you more. Or Jesus, you, fill me with your love. Or just focus on the word love. And so I think the long answer and the short answer to a very long answer I just gave you is I would say the first thing to do is just take 3 minutes a day of focusing on your breath, listening to the great unseen, and being open to the possibility that God's going to speak to you, and keep your mind focused on one idea, whether it's love, peace. If you're a Christian, just focus on the Lord Jesus, breathe it in, breathe it out, and start with that and finding it, whether it's at lunchtime, in the morning, or night, 3 minutes. And I have a feeling that 3 minutes is going to grow to 10 minutes by the end of 40 days.
I love that you brought that up, and just being more present. I feel like, a lot of people get distracted, like we've been talking about. A lot of people think there's other priorities in this world. But one of the questions that I want you to kind of like dive deeper into the mindfulness part is like, how do we sustain self-motivation when we keep suffering like setbacks towards our goals? Like, for example, these 40 days for Lent. If we're not doing it, it's technically, we get mad at ourselves that we didn't do it, then we try to do it, and then it creates, these setbacks towards these goals that we set out to do. And then, our self-motivation definitely goes down.
Yeah, no, for sure. And grace is a big piece of that beating yourself up and the shame, as that Brene Brown did all that great work on. It won't do you any good to beat yourself up and live in that shame. It's just a matter of like, okay, all right, how am I going to I think it all comes back to the vision, your vision. And I think that's key to perseverance. But perseverance is vision. What is my goal? And getting so crystal clear in that vision so it's in your gut. Sports psychologists and great coaches do that. They get their team to whatever that main goal is going to be, whether it's the championship, whether it's just a number of victories, whether it's just team unity, whether it's winning the big rivalry game. They get it in their heart. It's in their gut. So that everyone's together on this, and they're willing to fight for it, and they're willing to be able to push back on the resistance that's going to happen. Because anytime you set a goal and you start doing it, the resistance is going to happen. Your negative beliefs are going to start coming in there. You're not good enough for this. You can't pull this off. And you have to be able to keep on swinging in the trenches. You have to be able to sit there when it gets hard. Just do the reps every day. Get in there and do the reps. You study the great successful guys like Michael Phelps. He just said, listen, I did the reps every day. Kobe Bryant talks about, I just went in the gym. I get up early than you. I'm going to stay later than you. I'm going to do more reps than you. And I have a clear vision of what I'm going for. I want to be the MVP. I want to be, and then now that's a killer attitude. Kobe Bryant is a big one. But for all of us, even for a minor ones, you're looking to lose 10 pounds. Okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. Great. That's a great goal, but that's not going to last. Why? Why do you want to lose 10 pounds? Okay, because I want to get healthier. Why? Because my dad had diabetes. Okay, why? And what happened? Well, he almost lost his life to it. Oh, okay. And so why? So what does that mean to you? I'm afraid that might happen to me. Okay, and what happens if that happens? Well, then I won't be able to see my children grow up. All right, so I want you to think of your children at their wedding day and you being healthy, being able to be there. And that will guide you every morning when you get out of bed. You don't want to when the alarm goes off. So you can persevere through all that resistance and get to the gym and make different choices when you're at the table that you're going to now be eating something different. So crystal clear vision is important, because every single person who's tried to achieve a goal had major setbacks, horrible setbacks sometimes. And they made it through because they did the reps, did not stop. And they had those challenges, but they just kept on fighting every single day, and they stayed in the trenches and they didn't give up. So get the clear vision, be ready for the resistance, reframe the resistance that you're onto something really good, and then do the reps. You'll train your brain to see yourself as successful.
I love that. I don't even think there's anything else I could add to that. That was so good on the details. I remember seeing a video a couple weeks back, and it was about Steph Curry. And everyone sees Steph Curry as this amazing basketball player and probably one of the best shooters of all time. But they forget to realize, in order to become the best shooter of all time, the amount of shots he does each day to become the greatest shooter. So yeah, you might see him at 7 p.m. on NBA TNT hitting a half court shot, but you know how many times he's practiced that half court shot? You know how many times he's done a 3-pointer, with his eyes closed? Like, it's just mind blowing sometimes. But us as fans, we only see the games. We don't see the practice. And I think that's a great thing that you reminded us there. Like, it's same thing for ourselves, right? We need to practice kind of the stuff that Steph Curry was doing, all the stuff behind the scenes. And when you go out and do the performance, people will be amazed by what you're doing. But like you said, it was all the repetitions. It was all the getting up early. and all of the stuff, the little things to those goals.
Yeah, good diet, surrounding yourself with really good people, which is a key one too in all this, is having a good community around you, healthy people who are going to speak life into you and you can speak life into them. It's much more challenging if you try to be a maverick and do it all on your own, and don't have people pouring into you and saying who believe it.
Yeah, what's like another thing, Christian, we can do to like be more like cautious and aware of our surroundings rather than like creating those habits to get more self-destructive? Like, I know you just talked about having this clear vision and we talked about having this framework, but like sometimes we're going to ignore that better judgment. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We are human and we're going to do silly things. I mean, when I used to work more in the relationship world, we talk about you have to come up with your 3 non-negotiables. And those are 3 things that you, who's looking for a partner, you are not going to veer from. You will stay committed to, because listen, you might have, like, for instance, for myself, I came down to 3 things. I need to find a woman who is a woman of faith. I need to obviously have a woman that you're attracted to. You need to have some kind of chemistry. And there has to be an emotional, she needs to be emotionally available. So emotionally available, the attraction, I think, goes without saying for most of us. A woman of faith, and a woman who was caring and loving, who's not afraid to be affectionate. I knew from all the relationships I went through, I needed those 3 things. Without that, it would all fall apart. And I remember just, you easily, especially as men, we get distracted by the looks. And so I'll meet a woman who might be amazing and incredible, and she's emotionally available, and she's caring, and she's everything is great, and you're attracted to her, but she doesn't have faith. And you might be like, well, maybe this could work out. Maybe this could work out. Maybe I can make this one thing. Like, no, man, you cannot. You have to stay and just be able to say no. Now you can go try it and go date that person who might have doesn't have one of your 3 non-negotiables, but good luck. It's going to fall apart, and then you're going to have the heartbreak and deal with it all over again. So I think that setting these values that we stay committed to, and sometimes, my friend, I guess what I'm saying is sometimes you just have to feel the pain. Sometimes when you fall and you make choices that are not the best for you, and you feel the pain, but remember the pain. Remember how much it hurts. Like, remember what it's like and be like, man, that stunk. I don't want to feel that again. The Rock calls that the $7 moment. He remembered looking in his wallet. He couldn't even pay to get home after he got cut from the Canadian Football League. His dad was going to pick him up from the airport. He couldn't even pay to get to the airport. He looked in his wallet and all he had was $7. And he looked at that and it was so humiliating. He said, that will never happen again. And so it took him a while to get to the goal he was to get to the person we know today. Even from there, he went through depression, a lot of other things. But he had that in his mind. I'm not feeling that pain. That got him out of bed. I'm going to find another way. And that led him to wrestling. But we all need a $7 moment. And in order to get that $7 moment, we got to have a loss. We got to have a failure that happens that will remember that pain. And we'll be like, okay, I'm making a different choice next time.
I love that story. That's actually new information for me. I mean, I know a little bit about The Rock, but I don't know too much of that story. So that's super cool to hear. And obviously get a better understanding of his mindset and motivation, because wow, it is crazy. Is there anything else, Christian, that you want to share with the Encourage Mindset audience today, whether it's about resiliency, perseverance, Christianity, being a father or a husband, whatever it may be?
Well, whether or not you're a Christian, I mean, I think it's, if you are familiar with the scriptures, that Jesus was so focused and he had such a clear vision of why he was, what his mission was on earth. So whether you think he was just a rabbi or just a prophet, or he was a son of God, there's no denying that he was so crystal clear on his mission. And when people would try to distract him, like when there's a story where the Pharisees are coming to him and saying, hey man, you got to get out of here. Herod is going to kill you. The stuff you're saying, you're pushing the limits a little bit too much. He was like, man, go tell that fox I'm doing the work of God, man. I'm out here healing people. I'm out here casting out devils. I'm out leading people to the cross. I have a vision. I'm getting it. If he wants to come get me, come get me. I'm here. You know my address. Come get me. But he was so clear in his vision, as opposed to turning to fear and being like, you know what, you guys are right. whether or not they were looking out for him or not. But he could have been like, all right, let me quiet down a little bit so the movement doesn't get ruined or fall to fear. He said, I have a vision. So I think for all of us have that vision. There's a vision that whether you believe it's God or just it's innately in you to do good work for this world, and for you to journal that out and to find clarity on that of your purpose. And once you identify that, and sometimes it doesn't come overnight, your responsibility now, your duty is to go get it. Maybe you get coaching to help you with it. Maybe you get a good circle of champions of people who are going to support you in that. But what you're not going to do is just think about it, because that's just a waste of this gift that's been given to you. So you have something that's incredible to make this world a better place. And that's your response to say yes to it. And I think the abundance will flow from that. And I don't mean abundance just by finances, because this is not prosperity gospel. I just mean an abundance of life, of goodness, of compassion, of hope, and really making a great dent on this earth, because our responsibility is to leave this place better than we found it. And it's a little doubtful that we're stepping up to that challenge so far. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Love the points that you made there, Christian. Have you had a chance to watch The Chosen at all?
I was just talking to our youth director. She's taking all the kids to the latest one they're putting in the movie theater. You know what? Oddly enough, I have not. I feel
Okay.
it comes up all the time, and I know I should. I know it's good, and everyone loves it. I haven't heard that much criticism on it. So, but I know it's doing the job. He wanted to make it very accessible, and people are really learning a lot from it.
It's awesome that he created that, because it's getting more people to have serious conversations about our faith and open up the Bible. And yeah, it's super cool. And really appreciate you sharing your authentic self on this episode. I think this will be one of my favorites for sure.
Oh, thanks, man. How do you say that to all your guests? But I'll take it. I'm gonna No, I'm really grateful that you had me on here and risked your career as a podcaster to have me on the show.